All right, so the Golden State Warriors lost to the San Antonio Spurs on March 19th. In a previous post, I had talked about how I thought that the Spurs would lose to the Golden State Warriors. I missed some crucial information about 44 and 33, which I'll talk about in this video. Also, a lot of other interesting information with Donald Trump and Pope Francis again. But anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about this post here. The reason that I thought that the Warriors were going to win was because of this guy, Tony Bennett. He collapsed. He was the Virginia Cavaliers coach in college basketball. Just interesting, he coaches the Virginia Cavaliers. So I instantly thought of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I also thought of this guy, Tony Bennett, the singer. He's just been in the news a lot. He did a lot of famous songs with like Lady Gaga and Amy Winehouse and stuff like that as well. But first off, this guy is 89 years old. Virginia Cavaliers in gematria equals 89, just like Virginia, the small way, equals 89. Talked about LeBron James and the Cavaliers. King James is his nickname. King James equals 89. Cavaliers are even named after supporters of King Charles I in the English Civil War. Interesting because that is King James's son or whatever, the guy who became king after King James died. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But some of the main stuff here, you can come read this post. There is a lot of good information, even though that I was wrong on picking the Warriors over the Spurs. But I've been talking a lot about 9-23 and LeBron James's game of 9 of 23 that happened on November 4th. LeBron James even equals 114 in simple gematria. Tons of other stuff. But this guy, he collapsed with 34 seconds left in the first half. 34.1, which made me think 34.1, the Spurs were going on a 34-0 home win streak this year. So I thought, 34.1, 34-1. It made a whole lot of sense. Also, the Warriors had a 62-6 record. San Antonio Spurs equals 62. There's a ton of other stuff in regards to 62 and whatnot. I just thought maybe the Warriors were going to win. Another interesting thing about the story is that he collapsed in the first half, but then they came back and they ended up winning when he came back in the second half. They won 81-45. And 81 equals 108, just like Golden State Warriors. They also won by 36 points, and it was just after the Warriors had defeated the Knicks by 36 the other night. I talked a lot about how the Knicks and the Wizards are connected to all of this because of Pope Francis's visit to the United States. He went to Washington, D.C., he went to New York, and he also went to Philadelphia. So, there was just a lot of information. I even talked about how, it seems like the Cavs are they fall and then they rise up or whatever, which really couldn't, it's sort of what happened. They just lost to Miami really big, and then tonight they blow out the team, you know what I mean? So, kind of interesting, I guess. But, gonna move on. I want to talk about this game then, and some of the stuff that I missed, and also just some other stuff. So, the Spurs actually got their 44th home win in a row then in this game, stemming back to last season. It also just so happened to be the 144th day of the NBA season. If you write out the word 44, it equals 144. Also, March 19th can also be written as 19-3. 193 is the 44th prime number. The Warriors also lost 33 in a row to the Spurs at home, which should have been a dead giveaway. I just did not know that information. Something to look forward to, though, the next time that they play the Spurs at home, it will be the 34th game since the Warriors have beat the Spurs at home. And I've talked a lot about the 34 connections to 923. So we'll see what happens. I've seen it connected a lot to the Cavs, but it's never worked out for the Cavs. LeBron shot 9 of 23, and then 34 games later, they lost by 34 to the Warriors on January 18th. and that was the reason that David Blatt got fired, supposedly. Tyronn Lue, his name in Gematria equals 144. Just want to point that out. He's the new coach of the Cavs. Also connects to Lincoln, Nebraska and whatnot, and Abraham Lincoln. Also then, so if the Warriors do win this 34th game, it will make their record 1-33 out of the last 34 times playing the Spurs at home. The 133 connected to Pope Francis, who became Pope on 13-3 of 2013. Even if you write out 300, 6 score, and 6, it equals 133 and also 313. The mark of the beast, the 3 6s, all connected to the day that Pope Francis became the Pope. And I mean, there's just been a ton of these 6 references all year, whether it's 6, 26, 62, or 36 and 63, or just 2 6s or 3 6s. There's been a lot of this coded into this year. I've made previous videos on it. The Warriors even lost to the Lakers on 3-6, the day that Nancy Reagan died. A ton of like 262 around her. A lot of the 919, that's the 262nd day. Lots of it. So just, once again, if you don't get it, please go back and watch my previous videos. There's so much that is documented that you cannot talk about it in every video. So the only way you're going to learn and understand what I'm actually saying is you have to go back and watch or come to this blog, themindlessfreaks.blogspot.com, and read through some of my posts, and it will make a lot more sense. So anyway, this game, once again, had connections to Pope Francis and also Donald Trump. And before I even go any farther, I just want to say Pope Francis equals 122 in Gematria, Golden State equals 122, San Antonio equals 122. If you write out the word 122, it equals 93 in the small way Pythagorean Gematria. If you go from Pope Francis's birthday to the day that the Spurs beat the Warriors, it's a span of 93 days. Pope Francis turned 79 years old this year. He was born in 1936. It was also his 3rd year and 6th day as being the Pope, 6 days after 3/13 of 2013. Also, March 19th just so happens to be the 79th day of the year. So 93 days after Pope Francis's 79th birthday was the 79th day of the year, and the Warriors lost, and they only scored 79 points. Interesting too, the word champion equals 79. Just want to point that out really quick. Also, if you go from March 19th to 6/6, June 6th, it's a span of 79 days, which is just interesting. For one, it's the 2 6s, the 66. Also, last year, the main reason that I predicted the Royals to win the World Series, after looking through all of the coding, was because a guy was dressed up as Pope Francis, and he caught a home run ball of Salvador Perez, and it was on 6/6 last year. And then I said that Salvador Perez will even be something significant will happen to him in the World Series, and he was even the most valuable player and whatnot. So super interesting. It was all, and there was tons of other coding to the Pope in regards to the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City Royals, the small way equals 59. Pope Francis, the small way equals 59. Kansas City equals 122, just like Pope Francis. Also, if you write out the word 79 with the S exception, it equals 62. Warriors kept their 62 wins against the Spurs. If you write out San Antonio Spurs, it equals 62. The Spurs even led by 6 at half. The NBA Finals began on 6-2 this year. Also interesting, since the Warriors lost, their away record was 30-7, 307, the 63rd prime. They also now have not after tonight, but whatever. They also have a record after that game of 62-7. If you write 62-7 out, it equals 239. We're in the 239th year of the United States. If you do this as a date, 23-9, it's the same as September 23rd, the day that Pope Francis went to the White House at 9:23 on 9/23. He came to the United States the day before on his 923rd day as Pope. How people don't find that interesting blows me away. The Warriors lost to the Lakers on 3-6, the 66th day of the year even. Then, like I said, they just beat the Knicks by 36 points. The Warriors even lost to the Spurs by 8. If you write out the word 8 equals 31 and 49. Warriors equals 49. The word revelation equals 49. The Warriors used to be from Philadelphia. Philadelphia is in the book of Revelation. Revelation equals 49. Pope Francis, the last place he went on his trip was Philadelphia. Oakland equals 31. Curry equals 31. Tons of 31 around these guys. They picked up Varejao 31 days after Kerr came back. Varejao even replaced number 31, Azili. California, the 31st state. Tons of other stuff. I've also mentioned a lot about how the 923 stuff seems to go back to the Philadelphia train wreck that happened at 9:23 p.m. on May 12th last year. The movie, LeBron James is in the movie Trainwreck. LeBron James in Jewish gematria equals 923. The word trainwreck equals 122, just like Pope Francis. The Philadelphia Trainwreck even happened 66 days before the movie Trainwreck came out. I mean, it's all connected. It's ridiculous. But anyway, from the Trainwreck to March 19th is a span of 44 weeks and 4 days. Just really sticks out. There's been a lot of this 444 stuff in regards to Pope Francis as well. Even remember Steph Curry. I can't remember what game it was, but Steph Curry made a really significant shot with 44.4 seconds on the clock. I mean, just amazing how the clock stops at that time. Pope Francis in Philadelphia gave a speech at 4:44 p.m. using Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lectern. In simple English gematria, the number 74, like Masonic, like Jesus, like cross, like gospel, like all kinds of other numbers coded into that, whatever. In English gematria, where you times everything by 6, or satanic gematria, it equals 444. So anytime you see a 444, it's also connected to the 74, which is connected to Masonic and whatnot. Also, if you go from 9/23 of last year when Pope Francis went to the White House to the day the Spurs beat the Warriors, it's a span of 178 days. Also 5 months, 25 days. So the 52-25 mirrors. The word 6 in gematria even equals 52. The 52nd prime is 239. I mean, it's amazing. June 26th, also this year, is the 178th day of the year. 626 or 26-6. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope. 923, the 266th day. June 26th can be written as 26-6. There's also 188 days remaining on June 26th. If you go from March 19th this year to 9/23 this year, it's a span of 188 days. Also 26 weeks, 6 days. If you write June 26th in gematria, it equals 66. The 2 6s. It also just so happens to be this year Pope Francis's 1,201st day as Pope. Just interesting because in numerology you take out the 0, it'd be 121, just like the word revelation, just like warriors. I mean, like I said, it can also be written as 26-6, just like Pope Francis. Also interesting, I talked about this a long time ago, but 923 plus 266 equals 1,189, the chapters in the King James Bible. What's interesting about that is this year, on June 14th, Pope Francis will also be celebrating his 1,189th day as being Pope. And I just made a post about all these 146s in regards to the Pope and Donald Trump. June 14th is also Donald Trump's 70th birthday this year. So super interesting. It's Pope Francis' 1,189th day as Pope. Also Donald Trump's birthday. And June 14th, 14-6. It's just been connected to a lot of stories this year. Oakland, California, where the Warriors play. The Cavs coach who got fired equals 146. Also, if you go from the day that Pope Francis went to the White House on 9/23 to the day the Warriors lost to the Spurs, it's 5 months, 25 days. Interesting, this year, 5/25 is the 146th day of the year. Also, on the first day of Lupercalia, the 44th day of the year, when Antonin Scalia died and whatnot, I made a post about all these 146s that happened that day. There was a Pennsylvania car wreck. I think it was like Fredericksburg, something that added up to 146. There was also the 5.1 earthquake and whatnot in Oklahoma. And I swear they reported it was Fairfield, Oklahoma, and now it says Fairview. Maybe I was wrong, but Fairfield, Oklahoma equals 146. The most interesting one of the day, I always talk about how it all goes back to Philadelphia. So we had a big Philadelphia or Pennsylvania pileup that was tied to 146. Also that day, John Calipari, the coach of Kentucky, got thrown out of the game against South Carolina. And the headline was that he got thrown out after 146 seconds. Not 2 minutes, 26 seconds. It was 146 seconds. His name in gematria equals 62. Also 116 or 116. See my previous posts. I talked all about the judges and whatnot, with the 116 coding and Obama being assassinated. But another interesting thing about John Calipari is that he was, at one time, was the assistant coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, and he coached under Larry Brown. Just want to point this out here. Larry Brown in gematria equals 146 and also 56. Just like Allen Iverson, the big star that played for the Philadelphia 76ers. His name identical gematria to Larry Brown. He wore number 3, which equals 56. Paris, France equals 56. ISIS 56. I've talked so much about Philadelphia, it blows me away. I even have, if you type in on my video thing, type in Allen Iverson, I have like an hour-and-a-half video series on how Allen Iverson's whole life was literally coded and surrounded by the number 56. And also, they chose him from a young age or whatever to be grown up into this fake system. It's craziness. It literally goes back to when he was in high school and he went to prison or whatever for getting in a fight at a bowling alley, and the bowling alley's name even added up to 56. Tons of other stuff with it. Please watch the Allen Iverson video if you don't believe me. But anyway, let's move on here. So if you go from the day that Antonin Scalia died to June 14th, it's a span of 122 days. Remember, Pope Francis equals 122, Golden State, San Antonio all equal 122. Moral of the story, I noticed that the score totaled up to 166, 87 plus 79, 166. June 14th this year is the 166th day of the year. The Spurs even had a record after winning that game of 59-10. 59-10 equals 166. If you did this as a date even, 16-6, that was when Donald Trump announced that he was going to be running for president last year in 2015, also the same day that the Warriors won the NBA Finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Anyway, the Spurs were going into this game with 58 wins. They scored 87 points. If you write out 87, it equals 58. Also 139, identical to the word Freemasonry. The date numerology, 3 plus 19 plus 20 plus 16, even equals 58. March 19th to June 14th is a span of 87 days. I never even realized this until just now, but 2 months, 26 days. I just said that John Calipari got thrown out after 146 seconds and not 2 minutes, 26 seconds. So super interesting that it connects to June 14th a couple of ways. Also interesting, Easter is on March 27th this year. It just so happens to be the 87th day of the year. The date numerology of it, 3 plus 27 plus 20 plus 16, 66. Easter Sunday equals 152 and also 44. The Spurs just got their 44th home win in a row. Obama, the 44th president. Trump running to be the 44th person to be president. The word 79, like the Warriors score, equals 152. 319 to the day the NBA Finals begin is a span of 75 days. If you write out 75, it equals 152. Also, the day that the Warriors lost to the Spurs, March 19th, 2016, equals 152. And honestly, not exactly sure what this 152 is all about, but interesting, there's a pattern of it here. Wanted to point it out. Just want to prove here, Donald Trump, born on June 14th, 1946. He's 69 years old. Interesting that he's 69 because this game was also the Spurs' 69th game of the year. It was also the Warriors' 69th game of the year. The word 69 equals 49, 58, and 139. Just like Freemasonry here, 58 and 139. I also talked a lot about the Cavaliers and the Warriors finals. The Cavs lost to the Miami Heat on this same day. 122 to 101. 101, the 26 prime is 101. Philadelphia equals 101. The Cavs stayed on their 49 wins. Warriors equals 49. Revelation equals 49. The Heat won with 122 points. Golden State equals 122. Pope Francis. Whatever, San Antonio. Interesting, though. The Heat won. Miami Heat equals 79. It was the 79th day of the year. The Warriors scored 79. Just craziness. Cleveland Cavaliers equals 69. It was also their 69th game of the season, just like the Spurs, just like the Warriors. And the reason I even bring this up is because LeBron was 9 of 23 on 11-4. His name adds up to 114 the big way. 11-4 to the day that the Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the Warriors by 34 is a span of 75 days. If you go from 319 to 6-2 the day the finals begin, it's also a span of 75 days. I just found that kind of interesting. Just want to show you something really quick. If you write out the word 75, we talked about how it equaled 152, and I don't know what that means. But it also equals 53. 53, the number connected to Pope Francis. 53 equals 59 and 122, identical to Pope Francis. So just kind of interesting. It's kind of a backwards way to get there, but just wanted to point it out really quick. Also, if you go from the day that LeBron shot 9 of 23 to Donald Trump's birthday, it's a span of 223 days. So, interesting. The total score of that game was 122 to 101 against the Heat, which adds up to 223 even. Interesting number. The Synagogue of Satan equals 223. Friday the 13th equals 223. That was the day of the Paris attacks. 322, the mirror of this is the Skull and Bones number. Tons of other stuff with it. Also, if you go from Christmas, when the Warriors defeated the Cavs as well for the first time this season, and you go to March 19th, it's a span of 85 days, but also 2 months, 23 days. Interesting, though, LeBron shot 9 of 23 51 days before this. LeBron James equals 51, Cleveland equals 51, Cleveland Cavs 51. Cleveland hasn't won a sports championship in 51 years. Donald Trump said he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair, Batman 51. He's 15 years, 51 days older than Obama. I mean, just see my judges posts or videos or whatever you want. Tons of 51 stuff recently. The word conspiracy equals 51. Tinfoil hat equals 51. Area 51. I mean, put it all together. Also, if you go from the day that the Warriors beat the Cavs by 34 on January 18th to the March 19th, it's a span of 8 weeks, 5 days. So just interesting. There's some 85 connections. That all ties into Back to the Future. Also, earthquakes. I've talked a lot about this number, 85 and 58. Also, Freemasonry. Before I even move on, I want to point out that it's 61 days. Just kind of interesting. The words President Obama equals 61. He was born in 61. The Civil War began in the year 61. So just kind of interesting. Lots of racial stuff. I also seen on Facebook and also Brother Berg's blog, there was a lot of stuff about Donald Trump being Biff Tannen and whatnot. Interesting that Trump was born on a date numerology of 85. The word Biff Tannen equals 85. He won all of his money gambling on his 21st birthday that was on the 85th day of the year in 1958. Back to the Future, the main year is 1985. The guy who actually plays Biff, his full name adds up to 85. Or he's actually a junior. Thomas Francis Wilson Jr. equals 266. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope, 923. The 266th day of the year. The word 85 just so happens to equal 62 and 116, or 116. Super interesting. This number has been all over Obama and Donald Trump. Also, Steph Curry. Curry equals 85. Trump assassinated equals 219, which is pretty interesting. I talked a lot about 219 all over the Golden State Warriors. They lost to the Portland Trailblazers on 219. Back-to-back championships equals 219. There was a whole bunch of stuff with that. I just don't have time to talk about it, but just interesting that it connects to the Warriors once again. Donald Trump assassinated equals 80, the small way. Donald Trump assassinated 2016 equals 525 and 156. I mean, if you write out 33, it equals 156. Also 525, the 146th day of the year. Just Trump assassinated 2016 equals 133. Not sure what that is regards to, but 133, once again, ties to the Pope. Also 306 score and 6. Also interesting, since Donald Trump assassinated equals 80, there's been a lot of 80 stuff I talked about a while back in regards to the Miss Universe pageant. But before I even talk about that, I want to talk about Back to the Future once again here. So if you go from Trump's birthday to 9/2, which also just so happens to be the 71st anniversary of the end of World War II, but it's also the day that Marty McFly goes back to 1885. So September 2nd, 1885 is when Marty McFly goes back. 2015's over. I've talked about how they're moving on with the coding to Back to the Future 3. Doc Brown goes back to January 1st, 1885, which is 131 years ago. Like the word championship. Lots of other stuff with that connected to that as well. They even come back in time. They get pushed by the train, number 131. But anyway, if you go from June 14th, Trump's birthday, to 9/2, it's a span of 80 days also. 2 months, 19 days. So interesting, 80 is connected to this. It's also even 11 weeks, 3 days, the 113 that was all over the Paris attacks, the Golden State Warriors winning on this number a whole lot. Tons of other stuff with that. Steph Curry wears number 30. The 113th prime, or 30th prime is 113. Anyway, the Miss Universe pageant, where Steve Harvey messed up, was on December 20th, which, it's also connected to Donald Trump. Donald Trump got all of his stuff back or whatever on 9/11 of 2015. Oh, what a day. And then, I think the 14th of September, he sold all of his shares and blah, blah, blah. And it was all about because he was talking bad about Mexicans and whatnot. So he's connected to this Miss Universe pageant. But anyway, it was on December 20th. December 20th equals 80. There were 80 contestants. It was also the same day that Jimmy Carter's grandson died. It was 80 days after Jimmy Carter's 91st birthday. The same day as the Roseburg, Oregon shooting. I have a couple videos on this as well. There's a lot more to this as well, so please go back and watch that. Steve Harvey equals 51. Just like tons of this 51 coding. December 20th to Donald Trump's birthday, 177 days, which connects 626, normally the 177th day. It's also 5 months, 25 days. You remember 525 this year is the 146th day. June 14th, 14-6. Also interesting, if you go the other way, 614 to 1220 this year, it's a span of 6 months and 6 days. The 66, I mean, it's just a bit all over the place. And I can't help but think of the Miss USA 2009 pageant when Miss California came out and said that she didn't believe in gay marriage and all that. And then she lost because of it, and Donald Trump supported her, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just craziness, but just look at this. So, the Miss Universe pageant, I know this must be every year, but it's still interesting when you think about it. 51 entrants, and they place 15, the 15 and 51, just like how much older Trump is than Obama. I mean, just pretty interesting. This also was the 58th Miss USA pageant. We've seen lots of 58 this year. There's the 58th Grammys, the 58th Daytona 500. But also remember that gay marriage was legalized on 6/26, the mere 62/26. Also, since California didn't win, North Carolina won. Just kind of stands out to me because Michael Jordan, owns the Charlotte Hornets. Steph Curry is originally from there or whatever. He was also born in the same town as LeBron James. Interesting, in Ohio. The Panthers were from North Carolina. Prince Charles. The Carolinas are named after King Charles and whatnot. The Cavaliers are followers of King Charles. Lots of interesting stuff with it. So, just interesting. North Carolina won. Maybe it doesn't connect. I just remember this. And the 626 stands out because of all the 62 stuff and gay marriage and whatnot. Also, Donald Trump was the guy who was all about Obama's birth certificate. I mean, how ridiculous is this? Obama, born on 8/4, birth certificate in gematria even equals 84. Donald Trump even had his beef with the Pope this year. There was a few articles or whatever. There was more than just this, but these were a couple that were just recent. The Pope said that Trump is not a Christian. And then he went to Mexico and he talked about Donald and the wall and whatnot. But Pope assassinated June 14th equals 122, just like Pope Francis. Just found that kind of interesting. Also, like I said, Pope Francis, the Spurs beat the Warriors 93 days after Pope Francis's 79th birthday. If you go from the day Pope Francis's 3rd-year anniversary was to June 14, it's also a span of 93 days. Also 13 weeks and 2 days, kind of like 132. Antonin Scalia, the big way, equals 132. So I don't know. June 14th just definitely seems like a pretty big day to watch out for. I wouldn't think that Trump or somebody would die on... You wouldn't think Trump would die on his own birthday. That doesn't seem realistic to me. But there's definitely a lot of coding to this day. A very interesting day in regards to Pope Francis as well. So, I mean, I don't know. And I feel like there's something more with Easter. I'm just not seeing it or getting it. But since the Spurs won with 87 points and Easter's the 87th day, it also just so happens to be 79 days before Trump's birthday. And the Warriors scored 79, and then it's 87 days from the day that the Spurs beat the Warriors. So them 2 days are like mere days of each other to Trump's birthday and also the Pope's 1,189th day as Pope. So Easter, I'm sure there's something more significant going on with it. I'm just not seeing it. One thing I did notice, though, I talked about Kobe Bryant and in the game against the Warriors. They said that it was his 1,183rd start. So if Kobe Bryant plays every game and he starts up until Easter, the game on Easter will be his 1,189th start. It's also against the Wizards, who play in Washington, D.C. So, super interesting. Kobe Bryant even announced his retirement 3 months and 27 days before 3/27, the day that Easter is on. So I guess it would seem pretty fitting to have the 1,189th start on Easter 327 after he announces his retirement and whatnot. Also 119 days, just interesting. If you flip it upside down, it's a 611. So who knows? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm sorry that it was so long. I crammed a lot of other things into one, but they're all interrelated. So whatever, I'm going to quit rambling. Hopefully you understand. Please go back and watch my other videos or read my posts. It'll make a lot more sense. Have a good one.